Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Persona 5 commentary, where we are once again living another day in the life of a frizzy-haired Japanese teenager.
Is it just me, or does Ren Amamiya look suspiciously like Akira Kurusu?
I don't know. I've never seen them in the same room together, so... Got my eye on you, man. Let's study Ryuji. If you want to laugh, just suggest to Ryuji that he take his schoolwork seriously.
Oh.
If you also want to see it laugh, look at the pacing for the Persona 5 first episode's anime.
I haven't seen it yet. Is the pacing really slow?
Okay, they get from basically the very opening start of the game to summoning the first Persona in 20 minutes.
Yeah, you know, they kind of did the same thing in the Persona 4 anime, but it was paced out a little bit better because there's not as much material of consequence in those first few days. Persona 4's opening has the weird feeling of a novel with a lot of day-to-day fluff breaking up the action, whereas like every single minute of the Persona 5 opening is significant in some way, so you can't really skip any of it without it feeling weird.
Yeah, they skipped down essentially about an hour and a half into 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right on.
It's like it feels really disjointed, and it makes absolutely no sense unless you already know what's going on.
Oh yeah, I also read somewhere that the anime is going to deviate a bit from the game.
They said you expect a big surprise.
Yeah, that makes some amount of sense. If they're doing the anime as a sort of Persona 4 Golden kind of animation, where it's meant to, you're definitely meant to have played the game before watching it, you know? Persona 4 Golden had a weird sort of New Game Plus vibe going to it, which is...
There's a bad ending episode in the Golden animation.
Ugh. It was strange. I don't know, I still prefer the original P4 anime. I mean, it had its rough spots, but... at least it's not Trinity Soul.
But it's all owned by Aniplex in the end, so you're never going to own it.
So I guess I'm the only one from the silence that greeted me just now to have taken a look at Trinity Soul.
Yep.
I don't even know what that is.
Okay, so they tried to do this sort of original story anime series using the Persona mythos. I think it was like before Persona 4 was a thing at all. So it was heavily reliant on concepts from Persona 3. And the way Personas work is a bit weird. Igor makes an appearance in the real world under a hood for some reason. I haven't actually watched the whole thing through. I just know I couldn't follow the goddamn thing. I don't know. It kind of it's been so long I can't describe it accurately. Anyway, it's bad. Just know that much. It's not good.
Now you have me curious.
Persona Trinity Soul, you can look it up if you're really that masochistic, but...
I don't know, man. I've seen some pretty shitty anime.
The thing is, I got the sense that they were definitely trying. Like, they were definitely trying to write an original Persona story that was, you know, valuable to the franchise. They just didn't really succeed. But, you know, it was that point in time when Persona was on the rise, but not exactly meme popular yet, so, I guess they might not have gotten the best writers or put as much budget into it, and, well, it showed in, more in the writing than the animation.
Well, most game adaptations to anime usually don't get that much effort put into them unless they're, like, specifically from, like, a visual novel, which... Even today, is still kind of only a borderline technicality a game.
Yeah, this wasn't an adaptation though. It was like set in the future, and it had some concepts from Persona 3 in it, but it wasn't really connected to the characters or locations. It's more like that Wild Arms anime that came in a DVD with Wild Arms 5. Or maybe they were going for a dot hack sort of situation. I don't know. But
yeah, dot hack is its own very massive can of worms. Let's not get into.
well, it has a weird sort of charm to it because it was birthed during the very early days of MMORPGs when no one knew what the fuck to do with MMORPGs to begin with. So was Sword Art Online, but people give that a lot more flack because it wasn't technically published as a light novel until much later.
The only amusing thing I know about Dot Hack is that if you get the American DVDs of the first series of Dot Hack Sign, you can listen to it without you can watch the series with the dialogue off and only listen to the music. Because everyone liked the soundtrack so much, but didn't care that much for the dub.
Yeah, I still need to.
Yes.
I lost my track. I was reading the text box and it just derailed my thoughts. I'm sorry. My brain latches onto words when I see them in front of me and it distracts me. It's why I don't like watching anime subtitled, because I can't focus on what's going on screen because the subtitles just magnetize my eyeballs straight to them.
You can show off. Yeah, you are. You just got it from the idol poster.
This doesn't go on the shelf, though. It goes on the wall, obviously, because it's a poster. I mean, where did you think it was going to go? The cool thing about the idol poster, though, is when you get it, it's a Risei poster for your bedroom.
And if you never played Persona 4, that reference is lost on you.
Risei!
Well, people probably know who Risei is. I think even Hayam Daisy's comic got that far into the story before it stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like it ended on Shadow Teddy telling everyone he was gonna murder their asses.
Yeah.
And no one survived that night.
I'm just strictly speaking of people who have never played 3 or 4, jump into 5, and then they look at these posters and stuff. They don't know who Risei is because they've never played 4. They have no context of what that character is.
Yeah. It's like the only time Persona 5 makes a reference to 4 or 3, it's in the form of Naoto Shirogane being mentioned by name. It's just such a weird narrative decision that you can't imagine that it could have been made if there wasn't a pre-existing story about this character. Why would you make up another character called the Detective Prince and mention them by name unless they were a character in a story that happened before, you know? But yeah. Anyway, it's time to actually get this confidant going. Yeah, we're like a hip high school teenager with fashion accessory glasses and a suit jacket, and we're gonna be hanging with a pot-bellied middle-aged man so that he can teach us how to do political speeches.
Public speaking. Something everyone sucks with, no matter how good you think you are.
Yep.
Well, Yoshida's pretty good at it. It's the only thing he's got going for him as a politician, though. That and his conviction. His convictions. Oh, God. Conviction also means being accused and convicted of a crime. I need to pick a different word.
Then again, protagonist isn't doing much, he's just holding up a sign. It's totally how you'll learn how to
I'm not with him!
Well, the deal is, you help me with my speeches, and then afterward I'll teach you how to do this and that. So we don't actually see the lessons. That would have been boring anyway. I just like the fact that the protagonist is standing here with this sign, positioned like very directly in front of his face. Is like, don't notice me, don't notice me, don't notice me. I'm not here.
That really annoys me.
Well, nobody asked your opinion, shithead.
As if anyone would actually vote for you. Are you planning to embezzle funds again, or maybe criticize one of your constituents?
I like how he limps and criticize your constituents, and then says you criminal. That's not a crime. It's just tactless, you know. He apparently called one of his voters an idiot during one of his speeches in the past, and well, obviously not a good idea. I mean, if you're gonna answer them, you need to do so tactfully. You can't just Donald Trump it, you know? Speaking of that, I remember when this game came out, people were saying that one of the bad guys was Donald Trump, basically. It took me ages and ages to realize they were talking about President Okumura. I thought they were looking at Shido when they said that. But I'm like, nah, that's not Trump. This guy knows how to make a speech. So,
he knows words, the best words.
Yeah.
It's gonna make Big Bang Burger great again.
Yeah, but like, it didn't. The penny didn't drop that Okumura was trying to go from being a businessman to a politician. But yeah, I can sort of see it. It's just that whenever I think of the Okumura foods, I don't think of like Trump steaks or whatever. I think of frickin' McDonald's. You know?
Yeah.
The difference is that Big Bang Burger is actually successful.
Too many politics and BrainScratch. Stop it.
It's Persona 5. Get used to it.
Our character is literally talking to a politician on screen.
Oh, we just got demonetized. Ah, fuck.
Damn it.
Oh no.
Well, on to part 25. We're done. Imagine we just left the next 40 minutes completely silent.
It'd save us some time.
Man, BrainScratch not even trying anymore.
I gotta say though, this is unrelated to this scene, but it happens quite a lot in this game. I like it when there's a serious scene going on and there's something up in the calendar corner that's like pollen warning, flu season. What? Like you get the flu season warning during the battle with Shido. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But you sure got me there. You're a strange young man.
I prefer Amamiya now.
If learning how to give a great speech is what you seek, then I'd be happy to assist. In exchange,
You'll always be Kurusu to me.
continue assisting.
Well, I'm getting used to thinking of him as Ren Amamiya, if only because it sounds like an actual name, whereas Akira Kurusu is a bit on the nose.
Main character, yeah, main character-y.
Main character-y, also on the nose in terms of its meaning.
You're so eloquent. Who taught you?
Although, I guess I shouldn't give the name Akira Kurusu any shit for that, since Yu Norakami basically means you lightning god. So...
And Durarara calls the main character out for that, even though that's not really his fault. Because his name is Mikado Ryugamine, and like a bunch of people call him out. It's like, that sounds like someone's trying too hard with their name, or like, that sounds like an author's pen name. It's like, I can't help it, that's just my name.
That's one anime I need to watch. I need to get to Durarara at some point.
It's good, but it can get very confusing, because it has a lot of characters that are all essential to the plot.
Yeah, that I've heard.
I forget whether I mentioned it, but the P4 protagonist's name, I think, was Soji Seita until the anime, which came out around the same time as, I think, a live-action Rurouni Kenshin movie. And they didn't want to have a name that was so similar to Sojiro Seita, so they changed it.
What, the first Kenshin movie?
I think so.
I hear those are good.
Yeah. It's a bit hard to recommend anything Rurouni Kenshin related at the moment, though.
Yeah.
It was so jarring for me when I first beat Persona 4, because then I was like, I'm going to try some Persona 4 spin-offs. So I get Arena, and Arena has this long story mode where if you choose to play as the main character, he narrates and talks to the other characters quite a bit. Like, he's saying a lot of sentences throughout the entire game, and the fact that his name was Yu Narakami was like, whoa, who is this guy?
I am so thou, thou art I.
You're supposed to be silent and hitting on Chie. Stop it.
Selfie.
Oh, I remember this part. Employee posts a nude chef selfie, Wild Duck Burger. This is Like, I didn't realize until this playthrough that this was the first foreshadowing of the Okumura plot. Because, obviously, what's happening in the background right now is that Kunikazu Okumura has ordered a psychotic breakdown for someone working at a Wild Duck Burger. So, Akechi's going around in the background making Wild Duck Burger employees do stupid stuff to ruin Wild Duck's publicity. And what the upshot of this little behind-the-scenes side plot is that you start hearing news articles later on about Wild Duck Burger's stock falling and them either going out of business or just being in a bad way, so that Okumura Foods and Big Bang Burger can step up. The thing about Wild Duck Burger is that they're not actually an out-of-nowhere company. Wild Duck Burger was one of the fast food places you could go to eat in Persona 3.
Yeah.
Attention to detail.
It makes New Game Plus pretty good when you're catching little details that you didn't notice before.
Anyway, since I've finally opened the gym, I don't necessarily need to pay attention to Ryuji for a while, so I'm actually going to be social linking with An.
But aren't we bros, dude? Hey, wait, come back.
I like An better as a character overall. I don't necessarily mind Ryuji. There aren't any characters in this game that I dislike. In fact, I like all of them, but I like An more. She's got a little bit more going on, whereas Ryuji's a bit generic in his way. Well executed generic, but generic.
An's got it going on, all right. Oh yeah.
Speaking of which, have you decided which character you were going to romance? Has that been decided?
Call me like a sentimental romantic, but I never change up my option after the first playthrough. It's always going to be Mikoto from this point on.
Yeah!
Me and Kara had this exact kind of conversation. She asked me if I was going to change up my romance option when I was doing New Game Plus this week, because I replayed Persona 5 recently, and I said, no, always Mikoto. If I want to see the other romances, I'll watch them on YouTube.
Well, I mean, if you want to be Gerard tier completionist about it, completing a playthrough with a particular romance option gets you that character's chocolate on him, which you retain for all future playthroughs. So you do have the option to go through and collect the chocolates, like frickin' Witcher 1 sex scene cards, but like, I don't care. So, I'm not doing that. Although, on the subject of that, An made me feel kind of awful. So did Haru, because they both come onto you toward the end of their romances. Like, it's not something that you need to poke them for. They either voice or imply their feelings towards you, and then you have to reject them, and they're obviously sad about it, and it makes you feel awful. I haven't had a feeling like that in a Persona game since the drama club in Persona 4, where you hit rank 10.
Oh, yeah.
That scene was... I was already dating Chie, I'm sorry.
It's like real life.
Especially with, like, Haru, because I remember the phrasings, like, he meant we're really good friends. Like, I'm just imagining him saying it in that tone. He means we're really good friends. Friends.
The unfortunate thing is that I actually really like Haru as a character, and I might have considered dating her instead if she had been introduced way earlier on in the game.
Yeah.
But she doesn't even make her first appearances until way late in the game, let alone join your party. So I had no idea what kind of character she'd be like. I'd seen her in some of the trailers and stuff, but the trailers didn't give you a good idea of her character personality. All I knew was that she had the flashy end of battle sign with her drinking tea and saying adieu.
It's a little disappointing that she's not there for, like, the beach trip with Futaba and all that stuff, and then you finally get her, and, well, we're pretty much at the penultimate dungeon. You know, we're already catching up to the frame story.
The other downside to her showing up so late in the game is that if you have a romance option earlier on during certain events, there are special scenes for those characters, like during the Hawaii trip and I think a festival before that, or something. No, I think there was a scene where, like, character might be doing a talent show or something, and in order to distract from people asking about the Phantom Thieves, you can just be that guy and shout out, "Makoto, I love you," and it just throws off everything.
Yeah, that happens when Akechi confronts you about the Phantom Thieves. It's just before the casino dungeon, and before you've actually initiated a social link with Haru. Like, you can't get to rank 1 before that point.
Yeah.
But I think Haru could still text you during the festival, and you could still, like, accept it and hang out with her during the festival, but...
Yeah, but, you know, no romance path by that point, so it gets a little limited.
Yeah, because, again, the Hawaii trip, you can go to the beach with the bros, you can go to the beach with Makoto, with An, with Kawakami.
Yeah. Weird.
Oh, even Haifumi goes to Hawaii, so you can go with her too.
Yeah, I think she goes to Yusuke's high school, so she winds up there along with him. It's man, that was weird. Like, I get what they were going for. They were going for this really expensive field trip situation, because, you know, in Persona 4 you were in this dingy little high school in the sticks, so their idea of a field trip was to go a few towns over and visit another high school in the big city, and they cheaped out so much on it that you actually wind up staying the night at a hotel that used to be a love hotel. So it's
yeah.
Yeah, it's one big Persona 3 nostalgia trip, but it's also meant to underline how cheap that school is. So in Persona 5, you're at this, you know, super classy prep school, so they send you to Hawaii instead. And it's just by sheer stupid coincidence that Yusuke and his schoolmates wind up stopping over at Hawaii because a storm prevented them from going to where they actually were going.
Oh, what a coincidence.
Well, I mean, it's not like there's many other places to land. They were going to America. So...
I don't know, America's pretty big.
Yeah, well, if they could get as far as where they were... If they could get as far as the continental U.S., they could have stopped where they were actually going, which was California. You know? So...
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think like they were going to Los Angeles or something like that.
I'd have liked it if instead they overshot and somehow landed up in the middle of bumfuckville Midwest town.
Dust Bowl, Kansas.
Trying to get around not speaking any English and none of the people there knowing any Japanese.
What's with all these Japanese fellas? If there's anything I'd like Persona 6 to do, I would want them to start incorporating like 2 party members a month, you know? Try and find a way to get like 2 people in the party on one event.
Well, you know, they sort of did that in Persona 3, because the party member distribution wasn't so intrinsically tied to plot events.
Yeah.
So you'd get like Ken and Koromaru in the same chunk of the game. You'd get Mitsuru and Akihiko rejoining the team in the second month. That kind of thing. It worked out better, but Persona 3 also had a larger cast, so it was stretched out to at least midsummer, and then Shinjiro joined later on in the game and then promptly died. But
well, I mean, all these games start as, you know, you're the new kid in town sort of thing. Maybe it'd be interesting if instead they, you know, you're a kid who's lived there for a while, so you already have a group of friends, and that kind of builds from there.
Yeah, it's just like it's hard to.
I know it's hard to introduce character traits and stuff like that, but I think it'd be an interesting trait in place.
It's not so much about character traits. The reason they do it like this is for that self-insert factor.
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, it's like...
Yeah, it's like, even with Akira Kurusu's established backstory, it's easier to put yourself in his shoes when you're the new kid in town, getting to know everyone from scratch. So... Because that's where you stand as the player character, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good to keep doing that.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's part of the formula here, and it's part of a general formula for this kind of role-playing video game too, for good reason, because it works. But there's always room for experimentation, and I think they could stand to do that. It's not like they didn't already do that. That was basically the situation that the Persona 1 and 2 protagonists were in.
Yeah.
The difference is those are very different games, though.
Yeah, very different games. Like, you literally start Persona 1 in a room with a bunch of your classmates who you already know. And because you already know them, each one has to be introduced with a text box giving you a general idea of what you're supposed to already know about them. Like, the Brown has a nickname Brown because he shat himself at some point or something. I don't know.
Ooh, Mr. Trainer Person, is this a cosmic treadmill? Can I go to the past and the future with this?
Well, as we're about to see, I think Kurusu might be under the impression that it is.
Nice going.
In any case, there are two kinds of protein shakes. One is the regular protein, which gives you a little boost when you work out. The other is moist protein, which you can only buy once a day per rainy day at the grocery store. It costs about 4,500 yen to purchase one of those. I'm not drinking it this time because I wanted to actually show off the difference between a regular protein shake and a moist protein. So I'm drinking moist protein this time.
To the future!
Akira runs like a nerd when he's starting out. They actually gave him two. Oh, he tried to sprint and failed.
Yamcha.
That is the Yamcha pose.
They actually give him a separate running animation for when he's bad at running on the treadmill, and then switch him over to his graceful sprinting animation once he's better at it. But yeah, you get generally 3 HP and 2 SP per workout, except for the one workout period where you're getting used to the routine that you're on, and Morgana tells you that it's time to switch it up. I think it's possible to get yourself to the point where your HP is maxed and your SP is in the 800s, according to, I think, a comment that we got on a previous video. So...
You know who you are.
Well, I'm just reciting that from memory. I think I saw it, like, yesterday or something. The upshot, though, is that, you can really, really, really get a lot out of the gym if you're willing to devote a lot of the time out of your calendar for it. But unless you're on a playthrough where you're specifically trying to see what you can do with that, I wouldn't recommend doing that, because you don't really need that much HP or SP, and well, obviously you need a lot of those time slots for social linking and other things that you could possibly be doing, especially on a fresh new game, but there's a lot more room for it on a New Game Plus where your personality traits are already maxed out.
I would have, from that little dialogue option, I would have liked it just as a kind of a snarky answer for like an English version. His heart grew 3 sizes that day.
That's kind of like that's kind of like the kind of thing that Narukami would say, though.
Yeah, but
in Persona 4 Golden, they added a bunch of dumb puns in the new dialogue options, like
the Ted root.
Narukami's like he finished cleaning and someone compliments him on his work and he says something along the lines of "I'm the clean lantern," and he looks really proud of himself for the pun.
If you want to see my face, I can just video chat you.
Yeah, that's a thing that can be done. You can do like a ridiculous amount of stuff with your goddamn pocket computer these days, and I wish Stories would capitalize more often on the many tactical options that offers the characters and stories. I mean, it's not just a phone and a music player. You can use it for audio recordings too. Well, now wouldn't that be useful if you were, say, trying to take down a pervy teacher at a high school?
I wonder if a little girl named Makoto might think of doing that.
I have privacy laws.
That's right. She did use her phone to record Ryuji being a loudmouth. I forgot about that. Huh. I knew I liked Makoto.
You guys showing up to the Phantom Thieves meeting?
Yeah. One of the things about Makoto that really endeared me to her early on is like, in spite of her like having no those social skills below like a certain social class, like anyone who wasn't about as academically inclined as her, she just had she just wasn't on the right wavelength for. But she's also really, really smart in a deductive sense. Like I think it's her who comes up with most of the plan later on in the game, where they trick everyone into thinking the leader's dead.
Yeah.
So
She's the brains of the operation.
Now, I was just gonna say, I don't know about that, 'cause after all, my intelligence is maxed out.
Because, like, when you first start working with her in the palace, she, like, asks everybody, okay, so what's our plan of attack? And they're just like, we're gonna wing it and find the treasure? She's like, how have you been doing this without me?
I kind of see Akira Kurusu as the kind of guy who's smart on a reactionary level. Like, stuff happens and he's capable of reacting in a really smart way on the fly. Kind of like Harry Potter. Wow. Okay. I wasn't thinking that comparison through when I made it, but yeah, like Harry Potter. So Makoto would be the Hermione Granger who's really good at
Planning.
Who's really good at taking the information she's learned and forming a coherent battle plan out of it, but not necessarily great at strategy. Not necessarily great at... What am I thinking? Not necessarily great at socialization. I'm crossing all of my wires right now. Someone just hire me to commentate over pro sports and watch the fireworks.
Well, baseball season's starting.
I don't think I could commentate over baseball. Like, there'd just be a lot of dead air. I wouldn't have anything to say.
As compared to golf.
Well, you know,
golf is easy because you just have to be really quiet most of the time. And then just talk about which club they have in their hand, and then, he swung the ball. He swung the club.
Well, you know, I actually have some idea of what golf commentary sounds like, because I do, on occasion for spare change, I do audio transcriptions on the internet. Like, just listen to a snippet of a video and transcribe the audio, and I get, like, maybe about 10 cents per video clip. But one of the things that pops up fairly often on that service is golf video, golf broadcasts, that kind of thing. So I'm transcribing closed captions for that a lot. So I spent a fair amount of time last year listening to and transcribing golf commentary and golf press events and that kind of thing. It was interesting in its way. I don't dislike golf. It's probably one of the few sports that involve a ball that I can get behind, but I prefer it in video game form when you can skip the tedious parts.
So, Lewis, the professional Mario Golf commentator. I mean, I guess if we ever did a Mario Golf, that would technically be true.
I guess it would. Oh, I prefer Hot Shots Golf, though.
I should have changed that to "You mustn't run away." You mustn't run away. Get in the damn robot.
In any case, as you can tell from Takemi's depressive, defeatist talk right now, this is the part where you can't advance Takemi's confidant until you go into Mementos and deal with her corrupt medical director problem. So, she says her farewells here. And, like, one of the things that I like doing at this point in the social link is just being really unsubtle about asking for their full name. Just, like, ask straight out, what's his full name?
What are you trying to do?
So that, like, it makes total sense when afterward they realize you must be a phantom thief.
I know, you're a weird doctor.
But yeah, Shoichi Oyamada. So we're going to be dealing with his shadow in Mementos next part, along with 2 others.
Well, good to do those all at the same time rather than constantly jumping in and out. That's something you're unfortunately only going to know to do once you're on your 2nd or 3rd playthrough.
Yeah. I already have one shadow to deal with as it is, but whenever you beat a boss and then proceed past the date where the change of heart occurs, Mishima will always contact you about another side quest, and that side quest will always be hanging out in front of the door to the next area. So it's kind of like the Tartarus sub-bosses in its way. They just attached a story to it this time rather than just having a random-ass shadow in your way. Now, this one threw me off. So, if you're wondering why I'm sitting here looking at the question, I'm like, okay, which is the option? The thing is, when I opened up my browser to look at the quiz question answers, the answers were in incredibly broken English. And it took me a few seconds to realize that what I was reading was supposed to be probation officers are unpaid. Because the words they used in the sentence structure just made no goddamn sense, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, that can unfortunately happen.
I think it was a guide written when the game was still in Japanese, so. Because, like, what was the game was delayed for maybe about half a year?
It was in Japan in September, and we didn't get it till April, so.
So right. About half a year, yeah.
Yeah. I remember.
It was supposed to come out February, but.
I remember they doubled down a lot on protecting everyone from spoilers around that time. Like, and they actually did a remarkably good job of it. I mean, you could spoil yourself if you wanted to read the plot on a wiki in equally broken English, but yeah.
The only problem I had was I would go on YouTube after looking up the soundtrack, and then, oh look, there's a fancy thumbnail of one of the upcoming bosses. Oh, stop it.
That's what happened with Shido's boss.
Oh.
Yeah, I got spoiled with the whole, like, beefed up Shido.
Oh, you got
I was
spoiled
like,
on that?
Well, thanks, YouTube.
That was the
thumbnail.
That's not...
Yeah, that was the thumbnail.
People are jerks about that, yeah.
People are fucking dicks about
him
this
going
kind
all
of
Senator
shit,
Armstrong out of nowhere was the best surprise.
What I love is he had that, like, restraining thing first, too.
Yeah.
The moist protein.
Moist!
Oh, yeah.
The funny thing about Shido is that like, his entire boss fight was like pop culture references the monster. Because like I think he was like a Gundam guy at first, and then he was Senator Armstrong, and it's like, wow.
To the future!
I also like that Morgana's also on the treadmill. Like, I just imagine the customers walking by, looking at the cat doing it, like, wow, how do you train that?
He's being moral support.
Cat's just that good.
I just imagine people coming to this gym and watching Morgana running on the treadmill, and like, unbeknownst to the Phantom Thieves, Ren Amamiya has been trending on social media all this time as that whack job at the gym running with his cat. And like, at the end of the story, that's what saves him from jail. Like, just nobody can possibly take seriously the idea that this guy who runs on treadmills with his pet cat could possibly be a criminal. So, like, it's super easy to get him off in court.
It's always the guy you least suspect, isn't it?
I like that headcanon a lot. Hey guys, did you know that YouTube guy, he's in jail now?
Logan Start a GoFundMe page.
Just cut to the credits.
Oh boy, book time.
Oh god. You know, when I visit Tokyo, when I'm crossing items off my bucket list before I die, the first thing I'm going to do is just take a random ride on the train to see... just to see if it's really like this.
I've done that multiple times. It's lots of fun.
You know, the first book I read when I played this game the first time was Playing the Game. So I actually mistook that little pinching his nose, shaking his head thing as an, oh god, this is so stupid. Playing the Game is the book about the game, as in dating, seduction, that kind of thing. It's supposed to be the book that gives you extra charm points, I think. But I think Akira's thought process when he's reading is like, oh, this is kind of over the top, isn't it? So I think it was meant to be like a less satirical version of the book on manliness from Persona 4. Oh, speaking of reading, like right after getting a seat on the train, Kawakami decides to start letting you slack off. So you actually have 2 reading slots in a row, so you can finish like basically any book you want on the third. If you've got Kawakami's social link going.
Thanks, Teach.
It's good to find time to read when you can, because I think the social stat bonuses you get from reading books are quite substantial. But you know, the only other option if you're not reading during these time slots is, I think, to either go to the library and read. I think that's a possibility, or you can sit down at the bookshelf in the diner, the cafe, and read there.
You can definitely read in the library.
Well, I would hope you'd be able to read in the library.
Well, I wasn't sure. So, the library in Persona 3 was only for studying because they didn't have a reading mechanic. And I'm not sure that you had the option to read at the school library in Persona 4.
Like, at first you can't, because, like, Makoto's sitting there for a bit. I think it's until Madarame's plot opens up that she finally starts leaving that table. But,
she actually starts leaving that table, in Madarame's plot when she starts tailing you around.
Yeah. But before that, she's always there and you can't really get her to move, so it's like, oh, okay, I guess I can't use this. But I tried to get the trophy for reading all the books in the game, and you have to specifically call out all of the 8 books you get for each of your personas that are in the library. So, like, you ask the clerk, I'd like to borrow this book, I'd like to borrow this one, I'd like to return this one. And just to make sure that, like, I wasn't missing any, I would go to the table right next to the clerk to see if all the bookmarks were yellow, if I did read the book.
Kurusu, you're trying to hide what you're doing from the teacher by propping that book up, right? So
why are you having the book up to your face?
Speaking of Makoto and reading and tailing you around, she actually does read manga. So the manga volume she was running around with is something that she actually would be reading if she were reading on her spare time. It's interesting to know. She's also into that you must eat 30 foods per day dieting plan Japan used to have.
Alright.
The more you know.
I think she actually references reading manga when you're driving around Mementos.
Yeah.
But what kind of manga?
The problem with the character traits that you get from those random conversation snippets, though, is that the conversations are, of course, random, and a lot of the time you'll be skipping over them because they trigger like right before you get into a battle. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah, like I'll literally press the button to open a door, and even opening doors interrupts conversations. So like I'll push X at a door, they start talking, stop talking.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Speaking of those books,
they're nice conversations, but unfortunately the trend in modern video games of having characters chat with each other during gameplay has resulted in a lot of games where you're missing a lot of cool conversations because you're actually daring to play the game.
Or you wind up with a lot of the same repeated stock phrases over and over.
Or both.
It always blows my mind when I look up like Dragon Age Inquisition or Mass Effect Andromeda, and there's like hours worth of banter dialogue between all the characters. It's like, Jesus.
But BioWare is pretty good about that because they program it so that the conversations occur in specific places, usually places where if you're walking through an area, there's a good amount of time before you get to something that you need to do.
Yeah.
So, like, the crossing that one bridge in the first town in Dragon Age Origins, you'll always get a conversation there. But that's in, like, the middle of town. So you've got maybe about half a minute until you reach a building or the other side of town or whatever.
And sorry, go on.
It's just there's some party combinations I don't use, and even if I was mixing up my party a lot, in one playthrough there's no way I'm going to be hearing all those hours upon hours of conversations that they bother to write and voice for the game. So it's like, wowzer.
Yeah. Well, the other flip side though is that since you know through gameplay experience where the conversations will occur, if you want to hear them banter, you can just take a party conversation to that location and run back and forth across the bridge. You know. So.
Yeah, back to the game. Kara, you've been to Japan. Are they really as crepe obsessed as they are in like fictional media, like games and?
Oh my god, yes,
it's like something that appears in like anime all the fucking time. It's like, do they really like it that much?
Okay. Harajuku alone, there are like 10 crepe shops on that one street. It was ridiculous.
Well...
They're delicious crepes, oh my god, but yeah, it's really big there.
Man. That sounds interesting and delicious. I need to try
Yeah, so like they
sometime.
get this big crepe, and then that's essentially like the cone for like ice cream, and then they put like...
It's like a sweets burrito.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, between all the random like sweets and stuff they have there and all the ramen shops, I'd be like eating nonstop if I ever went to Japan.
Speaking of the ramen shops, one of the places you go in this as a hangout spot, not as a location you can run around. It's the place that Ryuji took you to, the first hangout spot you ever opened. It's actually Ramen Town, based on I think a real location in Tokyo. So it's basically just a bunch of ramen shops in that one area. So.
No, we're going
The
pretty
Sky
far out.
Tower.
Yeah, it's really far of the city.
I think this is technically 2 locations.
Yeah.
There's the street with all the shops that you can take your friends, and then there's the Sky Tower, which is like a dating location. It's weird how they portray Tokyo as this weird mishmash of actual named locations and locations that are bland named. So it's like, okay, we can get away with Akihabara, but the Sky Tree, no, not so much. It's like if we were doing Trump Tower, but we didn't want to name Trump, so we called it Crump Tower or something.
It's like in the anime that you see where they rename McDonald's WickDonald's.
Or McRonald or something like that. They just like change one letter or something, and it's like they can technically get away with it by doing that. So.
Yep.
It's always particularly weird when they have a very like realistic setting, not even like anime setting, but like trying to be realistic setting, and they do stuff like that. It's like that's just awkward.
Well, you can sort of get what they're trying to what they're trying to name there, but it's a little funny when you get stuff like Dr. Salt, because it's like ew. 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 They've been doing that ever since Persona 3. Like, I remember one of the earliest items I always buy when I play Persona 3 is a can of Mad Bull, because you need that to initiate one of the social links later on. And it's just so easy to pick up at the beginning of the game from the vending machine at the dorm that I always check it off the list right away.
How many squats do you do in a week? Well, if you do 100 a day, along with 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups every day, plus a 10-kilometer run.
Yeah, and you're highly encouraged to actually see what all the bland name drinks in this game are, because there's a trophy for drinking all of the drinks in the game from the vending machines. I didn't manage to get it though. I'm not sure what I missed.
And got to do another playthrough and tried them all over again.
I just waited until like December, and then I checked every single vending machine, and it popped. So I don't know.
I tried that, but I don't know. Man, cat fights are scary. Are guys really this easy to manipulate? Are we really that easy?
Yes.
Oh, no hesitation. Okay, I see how it is.
Yes, work for it, maybe. Work for it.
Although I suppose in this line of work, if they expressed any disbelief at her attitude, she would just whine harder and get them fired, so...
Yes, yes. No, no!
I don't know, I think he's got a point. They did state that the theme of this shoot was supposed to be elegance, and I don't think generic pop idol pose is going to cut it on...
Or
just kind
cutesy
of
younger
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah. For that matter, why did Mika request the high school student for the elegance of woman?
Probably to show her up.
Well, yeah, that's what you say is her objective when An asks you after this, but, like, it's a little bit of an awkward choice. Like, an awkward choice in the sense that one of these guys should have said, we should probably get a model who's a little older. Just saying.
Why would you want a car in Tokyo? You can't drive anywhere. It's like trying to drive in New York, but from what I hear, even worse.
The somewhat awkward thing about Mika's dialogue, though, is that it's so rooted in what's considered cute feminine attitude in Japan. So it's very kawaii. It sounds audibly in my head unnatural in English. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Like, I know in my head how to translate that to what it would sound like in Japanese, but in an English voice, it sounds weird. So, like, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't get models or actresses acting exactly that way in Hollywood or something.
Nah, they do things quite differently in that regard here.
I only have a passing knowledge of model and idol culture in Japan, but only because it comes up in pop culture that makes it over here. Like, Detective Conan has a pop idol mystery as one of the very early episodes, and it has to do with, like, pop idols not really being permitted to have boyfriends, or not necessarily not being permitted, but being heavily discouraged from having boyfriends.
And if they do, they pretty much the guys have to get approved by the agencies and stuff.
Yeah.
Motivation!
Like, what was the mystery? She broke up with her boyfriend for her career. I think he encouraged her to break up, but then like, he had, like, really big-time second thoughts and started stalking her or something, and committed suicide in her apartment when he believed that she was, like, really hating him now. It was interesting. Detective Conan has a very creative way of murders happening. Like,
I would imagine they'd have to after 25 plus years of the show going on.
It's just, like, it's baffling how many people in Detective Conan's version of Japan are just diabolical geniuses. You know? Like, they all come up with the craziest ways to kill people. Like, the very first mystery is this gymnastics high school girl who has a piano wire hidden in her necklace, and she gets on a roller coaster with her ex-boyfriend, and, like, in a dark tunnel, gets out of her seat, like, hangs off the safety bar, ties the piano wire across his neck, and decapitates him with it when it catches on something that they're driving past.
Does it reach Rube Goldberg's levels of absurdity?
Well, it's nearly 1,000 issues, like that's hundreds and hundreds of cases, probably yes.
Is there a chain trapped in ice with a Bunsen burner underneath the ice that's going to drop a big bucket of acid on someone tied to a car?
Alright, so, considering the causality of An learning this particular negotiation ability, I just imagine her, like, deliberately impersonating Mika during combat now. Okay, sure.
No sweets, but that's why you invited me out here in the first place.
You eat some for me, Akira. That's not how it
Fine.
works.
Well, I mean, as long as I get the sweet whatever, but... Wait, that was a tiring day, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
That's one way to put it.
Check
Well,
the TV.
More visitors are coming.
All the wider an audience for his fall.
All across Japan.
All according to plan.
Did you guys intentionally rhyme that?
No.
No.
Okay.
Translation note, Keikaku means plan.
No, translator's note, plan means keikaku. Calories, well... Okay. I mean, I just got stuffed full of crepes by... Crepes?
Crepes.
I just got stuffed full of chocolate by An, but I suppose I could do with a few more calories today.
I'll just go run it off to the future later.
It's kind of like... Right now, I feel like that guy who goes to the gym and then immediately after finishing a workout gets like a jumbo meal at McDonald's. So... It's like, why did you even bother? You're just pissing away money at this point.
It's like the people I see in the dining hall sometimes will get like really, really nice looking salads that look healthy, but then they get the bottle of ranch, just drown it. And I'm like,
some people
why?
like me can't really stand the taste of your typical salad foods unless the flavor is masked by something.
Yeah, well, I just hate leafy stuff.
I don't like greens, except for broccoli. It's just how I am.
Talking about like just putting the whole bottle in there. Basically.
Yeah, I was gonna say it becomes a dressing soup.
Yeah.
Speaking of quick foods and soups, high-end cup noodles, is that a thing?
I like one of the options. Do some real cooking.
I get the feeling like Kurusu would actually say that though is the thing.
The thing about those dialogue options, though, is that you don't have any sense of what kind of attitude that he's saying it with. Like, that line could read like a joking admonishment or a legitimate criticism, and you'd have no way of knowing, because not only does the dialogue option itself not indicate, but you can't see Kurusu's face right now while he's saying it.
Kawakami, you asked me to request you.
On the subject of that, like, Kurusu actually had, like, a boatload of unused dialogue for battles and stuff. Like, voice clips that gave him more of an actual attitude. They cut most of it out. I think you can find the sound files still in the game, but...
Well, that's a case of having it but not needing it.
Yeah.
If you're bothering to get the actor in the booth, make sure you cover all your bases as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. It's just interesting. I wonder what the game would have felt like if he was saying those things a lot. I think they hit the right balance, though. Kurusu/Amamiya does have enough attitude projected through his mannerisms and implied in his actions that his silent protagonist status does not come off as bland. It's very effectively done.
Well, because you get choices and you get a little bit more time with them compared to going back to what we talked about early in the part, the first episode of the Persona 5 anime, where it becomes really awkward where he's just not talking when any other character would have dialogue.
Wait, they made him silent in the...
No, he still talks. He still has lines, but he's not very chatty. And it comes
Oh.
across as very plotting. Because normally
I see.
normally in a show you would get better insight as to what they're thinking either through narration or some kind of dialogue that he's having.
Yeah, I get you.
But considering they're trying to keep him relatively close to the game, it's like, oh, on Ryuji and all that stuff in the beginning, it's like he's just standing there, mouth agape. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, what are you feeling about this main character? Nothing.
I do kind of see Ren as the thinks a lot, says very little kind of person. That kind of character that you see in books or movies, well, not necessarily movies, because they tend to talk a lot, but the kind of character you'll read about in a book who has a very interesting thought process and speaks relatively infrequently to the point where when he does speak, it has a lot of punch to it. You know, that kind of character. But it doesn't sound like they got that down in the anime.
Well, not yet anyway. It's only the first episode, so we'll have to see. But
Fair enough. Like they did like two very, very different approaches to it in the Persona 4 and 3 animes. Like in the Persona 4 anime, it was almost a parody of the silent protagonist concept, and in Persona 3, they just made Makoto Yuki really goddamn depressing. Like he doesn't talk because he doesn't care. He's like really apathetic about everything, which fits the theme, but it's kind of over the top. You know, I think I preferred the Persona 4 approach better. It's also really funny because, in a meta sense, because like they made the male protagonist in the anime super depressing, but when you play Persona 3 Portable as the female protagonist, she's the bounciest thing on the planet. Like all of her dialogue options are happy, super happy, all the time.
very
It's great.
strange.
So it's like they're polar opposites.
Rank up. For housekeeping. Housekeeping.
And now at this rank, you can get her to make coffee for you or do laundry. At a later rank, you can ask her to make curry, but not yet. So having Kawakami come over to make coffee for you, especially after you max out her rank and she'll do the stuff for free, is an excellent way to stock up on SP recovery items. Like, after the point where you don't have to pay for her services anymore, you could really, really seriously take advantage of this and have so much SP item in your stock that you basically don't ever have to worry about not making it through a dungeon in one day ever again.